It's no secret that sport bikes are an amazing motorcycle to ride. That's why most of us prefer them over any other style of bike. But there's one thing that many riders don't know about before getting into the market for a used sport bike. I'm going to give you my top 3 mistakes to avoid when buying a used sport bike. And if you stay to the end, I'll tell you which mistake is the most important not to make. Let's get started. Mistake number 1 is not understanding how to identify a track day bike. First thing you need to understand is how to tell if the bike you're looking at has been used as a track day bike or not. Track day bikes are great because they're more track focused than street focused. They have less emissions equipment on them, so they're usually more reliable. And most importantly, it shows you that the previous owner took care of this bike and probably put a lot of money into maintaining it. The problem is, when you buy a bike that's been used as a track day bike, but then take it out on the street and it doesn't handle well, and that can be a really big problem if you plan on riding your bike on the street, like most of us do. There are some simple things that you can look for to help determine if the bike was a track bike or not. If it was, it should be in pretty good shape. And if it wasn't, it could be in bad shape. Some things to look for is clip-ons. Now, clip-ons are nice because they bring your controls closer to you, which makes it easier to reach the brake and clutch lever and the shifter. But the problem is that clip-ons don't come with a street-legal application. So if the bike you're looking at has clip-ons on it, it probably spent some time on the track. Another giveaway that a bike has been used as a track bike is if it has a race exhaust on it. A race exhaust doesn't have a catalytic converter or a dB killer, which is what's responsible for making sure the bike stays under a certain sound output. Which brings us to the next giveaway. If the bike is louder than normal, it probably doesn't have a dB killer on it, and therefore it was probably used as a track bike. Another giveaway that a bike has been used as a track bike is if it has frame sliders. Frame sliders aren't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something to keep in mind when you're buying a bike. If you see frame sliders on the bike, it's very likely that it was used as a track bike at some point. You also want to check the rear tire. If the rear tire is super worn on the sides, that means that it was leaned over quite a bit, which is a good sign that it was used on the track. If all those things don't bother you, then you're probably good to go ahead and buy the bike. But just keep in mind that it was probably used as a track bike. The second mistake you want to avoid when buying a used sport bike is not getting a pre-purchase inspection. Getting a pre-purchase inspection isn't always top of mind when buying a bike, especially if you're buying from a private seller. But the truth is, it is one of the best ways to ensure that you not buying a lemon. Not only will a PPI help you find out if the bike has been in any accidents, but it'll also let you know if there are any underlying mechanical issues that could potentially cost you a lot of money down the road. This is especially true if you're rebuying a bike that is so dear or has a lot of miles on it. It's also a good idea to get a PPI, even if you're buying from a dealer. Dealers sometimes list bikes that aren't in the best condition, but they're still trying to sell. It is not uncommon for a dealer to try and get rid of a bike that is in rough shape, especially if it's been sitting on the lot for a while. If you get a PPI and the bike checks out clean, then you'll have peace of mind knowing that you're buying a good bike. Plus, if you find anything wrong with the bike, you can either ask the seller to fix it or negotiate the price accordingly. You can even do a PPI yourself. You don't necessarily have to pay a shop to do it for you. Just make sure you know what you're looking for. In fact, I made a video showing you exactly what to look for when inspecting a sport bike. Make sure to watch that video after this one. And now for the third mistake you want to avoid when buying a used sport bike, which also happens to be the most important one. Mistake no. 3 is buying a bike that doesn't fit you. This is by far the biggest mistake that I see riders make when buying a sport bike. In fact, I see it all the time at the track. There are riders out there who are way too big for the bike they're riding. But the thing is that a bike that's too small for you isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. If you're too big for your bike, you won't be able to control it properly. And we see this all the time at the track. If you've ever been to a track day, you've probably seen a rider low side at turn 14 at Coda. Turn 14 is a really fast right-hander and it's uphill. So many riders get too much throttle too early and the back end steps out and they lose control of the bike and go down. But the truth is, most of these crashes could be prevented if the rider would just buy a bike that was better suited for them. If you're too big for your bike, you won't be able to control it properly. And that's not just because you won't be able to reach the pegs. but because you'll never be able to get the bike to lean over far enough to put the weight on the tires. Now, if you're wondering how to avoid this, there are two things you can do. First, make sure you test ride the bike before you buy it. This should go for any used bike you're looking at. Don't just buy it without test riding it first. If you test ride it and it feels good, then it's probably a good fit. Also, keep in mind that different manufacturers fit different body types. For example, if you're a taller rider, you might want to look at a Yamaha because they tend to fit taller riders better. If you're a shorter rider, you might want to look at a Kawasaki because they tend to fit shorter riders better. The second thing you can do to avoid buying a bike that's too small for you is to adjust the bike to fit you better. Most sport bikes come with adjustable levers, which is a great place to start. You could also adjust the handlebars back and forth and even change them out for different ones. You can also lower or raise the suspension, which can make a big difference in how the bike fits you. If you're really tall, you can also get an aftermarket tail that will lower the seat height. And if you're really short, you can get a taller windscreen that will help you get more wind protection. So those are my top 3 mistakes to avoid when buying a used sport bike. Now, there are a lot of other things to consider when buying a used bike, such as the bike's history, its maintenance records, and of course, its price. But hopefully this gives you a good place to start. Oh, and if you haven't already subscribed, please do. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I appreciate all your support. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something new. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next time.